Hello, everybody. This is Grant from Brutally Delicious Podcast Productions, rather, with another installment of Heavy Hearts, where we're having open and frank discussions about mental health and heavy music. This week, I've got Shaun, local lad, lives just around the corner from me, from the awesome Newcastle band Morrows Massacre. Start the way that we always do. Shaun, tell us a bit about yourself and tell us a bit about what you've got going on creatively, mate.
Um, Wait, I'm Shaun, as you've said, and for what I've got going on, I've been in the music scene probably 15 yearish now, and between like hopping in between bands and playing up and down the country and that, I also try and put gigs on and off like on and off. I was doing it for years, and then joined Stevie for Get Heavy, but music's just been my main passion in life, if I'm honest. It's like what I've always drawn to.
Awesome stuff. Um, Mentioned in the build up there, you've got some gigs and what have you coming up. Tell us where anybody can catch you.
End of this month on the 27th of February, we're playing Vixen Bar in Hartlepool for Morrows Massacre, and then we're hitting Downcast on the 10th, no, 10th or 11th of March. I'll have to double check which one it is, but terrible with dates, man. Honestly, too much going on in my head.
I feel that one. I really, really do. Nice little launching point, I guess, because we do have, we embrace the chaos. We're heavy hearts. It's a bit of an open soapbox for you to lead the discussion. We talk about mental health and heavy music and alternative culture. So where do you want to start, dude?
uh, I'm a pretty open book with it, to be honest, because I've been through a lot of it myself in my own life. And the way I see it, if you're in a healthy enough place to talk about with people, then that can help other people notice that they might have something they need to look into or they need to talk about. Or, like, for me personally, it was like I would write about my troubles in songs, but I'd always hide it behind like metaphors and things. And I would always keep it to myself. And I spent most of my life just kind of letting it build up inside and being like, oh wait, I can just push through. I'll be fine. I'll just push through. And it wasn't until probably about 2019, just before lockdown ish, that I had a family member turn around and be like, look, like, because they'd also done the same most of their life. They'd just carried on and pushed through. And they turned around to me and went, look, I finally went and talked to somebody, and it's done wonders for us. So maybe you should do the same if like you ever feel like it's something you could do. And that was a massive changing point for me because I feel like I can, like I say, be a bit more of an open book about it. When I was in Cast and Tefra recording the first EP, I was doing like I would go upstairs, do my bass takes, and then literally like be like, "Oh, sorry lads, I've got to go do my therapy session," and go downstairs and answer the phone. But I'm as much of an advocate for it as I can be, if I'm honest. I always try, like when you said you were doing this, and like that's why I sent you a message. I was like, I'd be more than happy to talk and be an open book because the more people can not have things sit on their chest and sit on their heart and in their head, the better life can be otherwise. Like I didn't know how much I was missing out on in life by just letting things fester because I was always trying to double check myself of like, am I okay to say this around this person? Am I all right to do this? Like, am I going to upset anybody? But once you've like took a bit of time to like look inwards and figure those sorts of things out, I mean, I'm not saying everything's perfect, but like I'm a lot better place than I was a couple of years ago, if you know what I mean.
Lovely, man. Thank you for that. I think the message behind that is absolutely lovely as well. In fact, asking for help and, you mentioned about therapy and that kind of stuff. It's something that's so important and people can be something either not resistant to, not scared. Like for some people it's resistance, some people it's fear, for some people it's shame. I think the message of, there are people out there that will listen and, you can get that help is really, really important for everybody, not just metal culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Like, wait, I'll go back to the realm of blissful ignorance EP because that was like the big one for me because I spent all of lockdown. Like, the band decided what the concept of the story was going to be, but then they were like, Sean, because I was writing all the lyrics at the time, like, Sean, feel free to put whatever spin or message or whatever you need to do to it. And while it was right in that time where I was having that mental health battle of like, do I finally open up to someone and go to therapy, or and like every single song is like there's the storyline level to it of like what the concept EP was, but then like within all the lyrics, I wrote my own struggles of like what my thoughts were, and like fallacy of mine is like if you look at the words a little bit deeper than what the story is, it's all about like me finally being open up to talk about the fact of like at one point I did have like suicidal thoughts and struggles and not knowing whether I was going to make it through life. And then like the whole EP, like I say, I was doing my therapy sessions while recording it, but that was like the biggest cathartic experience for me to be like going to the therapy session and then finally opening up about these things. And then like you have that moment afterwards where you're self-reflecting, but I just put that straight into that record. It was like finally some like for me it clicked that was somewhere to push all of those feelings and to try and be like I can make something good out of something bad, if you know what I mean. And like every time I got to play those songs live, that was like a reminder of you've overcome something. You should be proud of yourself. And then you look into the crowd and see people enjoying something that you've made from like a hard time of your life. And that was everything. Like that, I love doing that. That's why I still play music.
Love that, dude. It's almost like you were reading my mind there because vocalist to vocalist here, because you know that I write and I sing myself. I always like to ask this in relation to the catharsis that you mentioned. Do you find that you gain more catharsis from your writing and the words that you're using? Do you feel like you get more catharsis from how you're projecting it and the way that you're screaming it and singing, or is the elements of that catharsis that you separate between the two?
It I get like the initial hit of it when writing it because like you say like you're putting it into you're taking it from yourself and putting it into something else. But yeah, when you're playing it live, when you're projecting it, there's like certain parts. There's the end of Descent to the Monolith Part Two. There's a bit where it's just like I would Ryan even turned around to us at the time and he was like, "I know how much this part of the song means to you. So do you want to do the vocals for this bit?" And then I remember the first time my younger sibling Reese came to see Tefra when we wrote it and when we were playing it, and they knew how much that bit meant to us because like they'd been through similar sort of things in their life, and like I was screaming it out and I seen them screaming it back, and like that was one of the most powerful moments I've had in all of my music because of exactly like you said, like the way you project it out, the way you're like throwing it into the ether as such, like getting it off your chest.
Incredible, dude. The reason that I always ask that one is because the concept of writing boundaries in relation to your mental health always ends up being during some of these discussions. And for me personally, I've got zero boundaries in what I write. Like everything that is in me gets thrown onto the paper, regardless of whether it might be good or beneficial for me, or sometimes harmful by trying to process stuff that I might not necessarily be processed in the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is the You don't necessarily need to name the bits that you hold back for obvious reasons, but are the parts of you and parts of what you've been through that you think, I don't know, I'm never writing about that. That one's never one that gets put forward.
Um, Not so much writing. Like I have wrote about stuff like that before, but it's more of once it's written, what I do with it after. Like I've got a folder where like I'm not ready to throw the lyrics away as such, but they're there. I've got them. I've written them down, and I've noticed that it hasn't been either the healthiest thing to write, or if I used it in a song, it wouldn't be the healthiest thing for like if anyone realized what it was about. Like I might harm somebody else for that, like who either knows is or can relate to that in a certain way. And it's like, right, that just stays on the shelf as such. Like I've got it off my chest, but it's not getting used. Is more the way I kind of go about it.
Awesome. Um, Maybe look at influences a little bit. Obviously you're writing music, you're writing lyrics and what have you. Who out there, you know, from a musical perspective, do you feel inspired by? Who you feel like you can relate to in relation to who you are as an artist?
Um, this is the one that kind of surprises people a bit because like with the music, the bands I tend to be in, I always tend to be quite heavy, and a lot of people assume I'm just into heavy music from it. But most of my influence and stuff comes from like hip hop and things like that. Like NF is a really good one I've been listening to lately, and like his albums are all about like his own experience in his life. Like his first album I listened to is called Mansion, and like the concept is that the mansion is his mental health and his headspace, and he has different rooms that he locks away for different experiences in his life. And like when I was going through a lot, I was listening to that, and a lot of that made me inspired to write the way I wrote about a lot of things. But growing up and things, it's bands like Bullet for My Valentine and Trivium and like Lamb of God or a lot, Killswitch Engage. A lot of those were kind of the ones that first got me into like I really want to write about these sorts of things and play this sort of music. But like I say, I've like a lot of my family listen to a little bit of everything from like dance to like electro, dubstep, heavy metal. So like it's just kind of a if you put my Spotify on, it's just a mishmash of everything.
Again, dude, I love that. We've got a lot in common there because thematically, I love my metal as well. But as far as the songwriters that I adore, I tend to go back to like 20s and 30s, sort of like heroin jazz era. People like Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Nina Simone, where it's just they are just like I say, I've got no boundaries. So that the more agony that I'm pouring out, the more it seems to feel right. I think again that's an important one. Like in relation to healthy mental well-being, don't pigeonhole yourself. You know what I mean? It's drawing those influences from a broad field as hip hop or anything else. It's a message not just for music, but it's a message for life. Enjoy who you are, enjoy the things that
Yeah,
people might find a little bit obscure about yourself. Yeah.
yeah. I've never been one for like genre naming and like oh wait, this is like this sort of like whatever in this song happens to be this sort of genre. I'm just kind of I like this, I'm gonna play this. Like the reason I tend to lean towards playing heavy music is like the energy and the passion of it. And then when you go and play gigs and there's like you get that back from the crowd, you get mosh pits and things like that. Like and there's a lot of community in it as well. Like you'll know from playing over the years, like a lot, like even in mosh pits and things like that, like we were talking about before, like if people fall, you pick them back up and you make sure you're okay. And but there's something about being amongst that like controlled chaos as such of everyone pouring themselves into this one moment of like, and I really love that. That like it just so happens to be metal that makes that feeling for us, and that's why I play that.
You mentioned that talking before. Me and Shaun did an amazing episode on the Get Heavy podcast in relation to mock pits and that kind of thing. And I think the community amongst alternative people in general, that concept, the mock pit rules, if somebody falls, you pick them up, is something that a lot of people are embracing now. Do you think, from a broader perspective, there's still any barriers in alternative culture in relation to how we process what we've been through?
I think so. Like it's a hard one to crack because like there's a lot of stigma still around being like open or weak as such for like having these things happen to you or going through certain things and not knowing how to process them. Like and a lot of people because of the stigmas will turn to like escapism and rather than trying to like face things head on, they'll either like delve into like drink or drugs or like they'll just close themselves off from the world so that they don't get like attacked or picked out or anything like that. And I think I don't know if it's ever going to be 100%, but I think the more that we do a lot of things, like everyone does like a little thing every day, kind of makes the world a better place, sort of thing. Like I'm always trying to go out my way to see if I can help others, and if I can, I can. If I can't, then like I'll try and point them in the right direction for someone that can. And it's took me a lot of years to realize that no one can do this sort of thing on their own. Like, 'cause I've tried and it didn't work for me.
Absolutely. Beautiful message, support network. is important, and I think it's important both that you reach out, but also that you show gratitude for those that have supported you. You know what I mean? Is there anything else that because you mentioned therapy a little bit before and talking to people and kind of processing through things in a positive environment, is there any sort of tips that you would give people listening in relation to, support networks and reaching out?
Um, I got quite lucky. Like I say, I had like family that turned around to me and was like, "We see what you're going through. I've been through similar. Maybe you should do this." And the company, I work for TGX, which is like TK Maxx, Home Sense, things like that. They offer a thing where you can go get like private therapy for, I think you can use it like once or twice a year to get like 6 sessions. So I was lucky enough to be in a situation where I could turn around to my work and be like, I'm not in a good place. Can I apply for this? And then didn't have to go through like a long wait list or anything like that. Like I got quite, like I said, I was really lucky for that. I only had to wait like a month or two before I got a counsellor. But though, like I have used the NHS one as well, and it isn't like the first step seems really hard to do, of like building yourself up to make the phone call or to go onto the online application, but like they treat you really well and like they guide you through everything. So if you do feel like you need it, and that taking that first step's the hardest step, but it like once you've took that step, it's very much you get to pick on what terms you go through things. Like the NHS one was like, tell us how many dates you want to do a month. Do you want to meet every week? Do you want to meet every month or 2 weeks? Here's a guide on what we want to talk about and what you might want to talk about. And if you don't, like, if you can think of anything else, just mention it. So like, it's a lovely service. I just think it's a bit overloaded. So if you're not ready for that sort of thing, but yeah, maybe like find a friend who you trust and maybe be like, look, I'm not in a good way. Can we just go out for like a coffee or something like that? And then that's still one step in the right direction. I know that when I first decided, I rang a friend up and we went for a drive down the beach and we just sat. We didn't even go on the beach. We just sat in the car looking at the water and talked for like a couple hours about everything. And that helped me to like put all my ducks in a row, sort of thing, get my head in a clearer place, because I was able to just like have that friend there as like a sounding wall, sort of thing, to like, here's what I'm thinking, what should I do, and have them give me like their opinions back. I think everything just starts with one small step in the right direction, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah. No, I love that, dude. Again, for listeners in the UK, this is the second interview that I've done today in this little session where we've got a relatively positive story about, the professional services and what have you, because, the stigma around mental health, but there's also stigma, about some of the services and what they can provide. I would agree, services are overloaded at the moment, and, if you can't reach out in a professional capacity, reach out in a personal capacity. For anybody that's listening, there's always somebody that's going to listen to you. Sometimes a friend, sometimes a stranger.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, I think we can start with sort of tying things up a little bit here, dude, because we're getting up to the 20-minute mark. I always kind of finish this thing with exactly the same question. If there's anybody out there listening that is staring into darkness, what would you say to them? We've talked a lot about what you'd say, what your advice would be. How would you sum it up if somebody was standing in front of you right now going, I'm hurting, I need help?
Um, if I'm honest with you, I wouldn't give them a spiel. I would turn around to them and say, if like, if they're asking me, look, I'm in a dark place, I need help, I would sit down and be like, wait, tell me what you need. That would be my biggest thing, because if you're in a dark place and you can have 100 people just give you walls and walls of advice, but you might not feel like you're being led in the right direction if you haven't told, like, if you haven't had the chance to tell people what you need. So even if it's just like, where do you think you're at? What do you think would help? Like, that would be my first thing, and then I would go from there. Like,
That is literally the most beautiful fucking answer to this question that I've ever had, and I absolutely love that. For anybody that's listening, you're absolutely right. It's not about telling people what to do. That's not a message to the people that are in darkness. That's a message to the people who have got friends that are in darkness. Listen to the people that you love. That's beautiful, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man.
That really is. Um, I'll let you take it out after that one, mate, because that's a soundbite for the ages, if nothing else. Is there anything else that you want to add before we kill this one?
Um, just try and look out for each other. I'm quite like I say, I'm quite lucky. I've got a network of people who, if I need anything, I can be like, look, I'm not in a good way, and if they can't help right then, they'll be like, well, we'll meet this time. Let's go. I've had friends who have met us at like 2, 3 in the morning, and I've done the same for them, where they've rang us and I've woke up and they've been like, look, I'm not in a good way. Can we have a chat? And either if it's on the phone or if we go meet up somewhere, like I hope that everyone can find someone like that in their lives. That's what I hope. And not
Absolutely
sure what
beautiful.
else to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there is anything else to say, man. It's a beautiful poetic way for me to the end of this segment. This has been Grant for the Brutally Delicious podcast with Heavy Hearts, along with Shaun Payne from Morrows Massacre. Anybody that's listening out there, in the description, we'll have phone numbers if you've been affected by anything that we've been talking about. And just always remember, you're not alone. Bye bye.